welcome to the recording. This is the beginning of a Haystacks asynchronous framework webinar. Just wanted to give a shout out. This entire presentation today is sponsored by Mobile First Applications. Nishant here is representing Mobile First as their CTO. The reason why I'm giving a shout out to them and Mobile First is the sponsor here is because Janir helped me to solve a major problem in the development of this platform. So really appreciate them being on here. A couple other people on the call. Nawal is my research copy editor. She's helping with writing our research papers for this article, or for the articles and the white papers that we're going to be publishing soon. Mateen is a contact from LinkedIn. So happy to have all of you here. And I'm going to just go ahead and dive right into the presentation. And by the way, it is all tech show, and I don't have any slides today because slides are boring, and who likes slides, right? So Haystacks Asynchronous is a JavaScript platform, and it's an interactive command prompt application. It works cross-platform on Mac, Linux, and Windows. It's an NPM module, but it's a framework. So we need to actually build an application to host it, which is what the test harness here is. So I can just do npm test, and it's going to launch the test harness, which will host the framework application. So it's going to boot it up, and as it's doing, it takes a little bit longer here for a second because it's loading plugins. We built a plugin management system, and plugins are loading external code, and it's loading dynamically. And you can see there, it's actually loaded into the interactive command prompt now, and the application, the framework, the test harness application is running, and it's hosting the framework inside of itself internally. So there's a couple things that I could say is we don't know what we're going to do here, so we could just type help. But there's also another system in here called CommandAliases, which allows you to have an alias for the command, which question mark does help, or HLP will do help as well. Question mark does the same thing. We got a clear screen so we can CLS, and help will display the commands that are available to the system. Just briefly before we go back, I want to highlight one thing. I'm going to just do X or Q or exit or quit. They all do the same thing. They will exit. And there's a couple things I wanted to highlight here. You'll notice here it says end application. These are all the commands that are available in the system. I should add, in JavaScript, there's functions, and functions can be sort of categorized as objects, and I'm sure you're familiar with this if you know anything about programming. And so you could use objects in JSON objects. They're fully qualified objects, and you can pass them and store them around in JSON data structures, and then you can call them from that data structure. And that's actually what we've done here. Normally, when you're writing software, you build a lot of programmers will just create a folder called utils or utilities, or just a file called utilities, and then they dump a bunch of stuff in that file, right? All their sort of common use functions. What we've done is we've done the exact same thing, but we've turned that into a manageable, like, hierarchical library. So now you can sort of make this into an extensible system that can grow dynamically. I should add that we've actually gone a level above that, and the framework defines a set of business rules, which are these functions, utility functions. But the application, the host application, can define its own business rules, and the plugins can define their own business rules, and they're all defined in code in their respective code repositories. And at runtime, when we load into this system, it will take all of the business rules and the commands, because the commands are working just like the business rules. We do the exact same design pattern, the same library management system. Everything is basically the same. We take those functional JSON JavaScript objects, and we sort of merge them at runtime into this runtime environment, right? And then that's this data structure that we run everything out of. So we can, it basically becomes this runtime environment where all of the the application business rules, all of the framework business rules, and all the plugin business rules are aggregated together into a single execution environment. And we do it for the commands as well. And so that's what you're seeing here, but I wanted to describe that because we're going to get into that a little bit later. You can see here there's command 01, command 02, command 03. Those are commands from the application. There's plugin 1 command 01, plugin 1 command 02. Those are plugin commands. So it loaded those from the plugins. It loaded the commands from the application, and there's a few others here from the application we're going to get into. And then the rest of these up here at the top version, name, about, clear screen. Those are all framework defined. The next one I wanted to sort of go into is when this thing started. When this thing started, you'll see some stuff that runs at the beginning, and it's kind of an announcement, a Figlet font, a version number, and a description. And okay, so you see this is the name of the application. There's a version number, which is 0.0.1, and the description of the application. Each one of those is a command. So basically I could run name, and I get the test harness, which is the same thing. So if I wanted to display that in the way that it displayed it here when it started up, it's name application true. Okay, and then it displays it with that Figlet font. But I could do name application false, which is the same as just typing name, and it does the same thing, it just without the Figlet font. But I could do name framework true, and it will display the framework name, which is Haystacks-Async. Or I could do about application, which gives the description of the application, or about framework, which gives the description of the framework. Version is for application. It will describe the version, which is 0.0.1, or version framework, which is 0.2.11. So we get different versions and different things. Now what this actually does is there's another system built into here in the Haystacks asynchronous platform called a workflow system, and it's basically a scripting engine. So what we did when we first started this thing is it ran the name application true, it ran the version for the application, it ran the description for the application. Well, actually what it was doing was it was decomposing a workflow. So it actually ran something called the startup workflow. So there's workflow startup, and that's exactly what it did. So workflow startup is the workflow command. It's another command, but it ran a specific script, which is the startup script, which in this case we call it a workflow. So it took that startup script and it decomposed it into its composing commands. So it ran the name command, the version command, the description command. And that's how workflows work. And that's the system that's built into here. So I wanted to show you that. And then there's, like I said, we have the client commands, which are application defined. So we got command 01 is the command from the application. Command 02, command 03, those are all commands from the application. And they're just echoing back the client string parsing dot client command 01, and you see that. Okay, so that's where it's coming from. But then we have, like I said, the workflow system. So we could do workflow test command sequence 1, which runs the two commands together, the two of them. It's part of a workflow. I could do workflow test command sequence 2, and it will run the next two, 3 and 4. But then we have nested workflows. So you could have a workflow that uses a workflow, and those use those commands. So it'll decompose everything. And so we have a workflow test command sequence all, and it runs all of them, right? It's all of those test sequence commands. So now we have a way of doing this. And this is actually what mobile first applications helped me with. This was the command that we used to help debug the problem that we were facing, which was an order of operations problem. It was a decomposition of commands and how those commands are decomposed and then in-queued into the command queue. We had to use this tool right here to solve that problem. And that's what mobile first applications was doing, which is again why they're sponsoring this program. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Now we've got a whole lot of workflows. I could do, there's another workflow question mark, and I'll get a list of workflows, and there's thousands of them, hundreds, lots. There's a lot of them. And what I wanted to do is we've got these business rules. We can execute individual business rules as commands because there's a business rules command. And so what we've done is we've built up a series of business rule commands up here, and then those are rolled up and they're all organized by folders and structures and all of this stuff. We've got one that nests, there's one of them that nests all of them. Business workflow inside workflow inside workflow, and inside all of those workflows are a bunch of business rules. So we've got one here that is workflow all client and framework business rules, which runs all of them, and a few commands too. It runs a few other commands. So I'm going to execute that, and what it's going to do is it's going to start running these business rules in sequence, and as it's running them, it's going to start capturing telemetry data from each and every single one of these calls. and it's storing that telemetry data, like when each one of them starts, when it finishes, how long it takes. It's storing all of that metadata, this execution telemetry, in this data structure on the back end. And you're going to see here at the end, it's going to run metrics and analysis. There's another command called business rules metrics. There it just ran. And it does another one for command metrics. And so it's analyzing that telemetry data, and it's spitting out some performance analysis. So it's got average run times. You could run each one of these business rules 10, 20, 100, or 1,000, 10,000 times and gather sort of average telemetry data off of how long a specific business rule or function took to call. And then it'll compute the average and standard deviation for the times that function was called. And the same for commands. It does the same thing for commands. And so this allows you to do like A/B testing or performance benchmarking on your algorithms. You could have a business rule that's implementing one algorithm and then another business rule that's implementing another algorithm, and sort of A/B test them and find out which one is more performant. Now this is a tremendously powerful tool for a software engineer. You could evaluate the performance of your algorithms and benchmark and test and do those kinds of performance analysis. So that's a really powerful tool, and I just wanted to show that because it's very cool to see that. So coming back to the logging system that I showed you about, where we had the begin test harness application function, and then when we did the exit, you saw the exit. So we've got a logging system that's built into here that's very powerful, and it's all controlled by configuration flag. So I can, and because we've got a command that allows me to change the settings of configuration settings at runtime, it's all just data on the back end. So I can manage it through commands, workflows from right here. So we've actually created a workflow that allows me to enable individual logs of individual functions or entire files. So I can turn on or off entire function libraries or files of logs. And that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to enable a workflow that enables an entire file. It's a high-level file called our Warden, which is sort of our internal-facing management file. So workflow Warden enable. And now it's enabled those logs. So anytime a function that is located inside the Warden file executes, when the function begins, what its inputs are, what its outputs are, and when it's done. And even if it's recursive, it'll still log. So this allows us to create execution maps or execution journals to determine, what's going on within our application as it's running. And we had this was very interesting. We used this a lot when we were debugging the order of operations problem that we had dealt with last year. So I can now do this, and you see I've got anytime a function's called, it's logging it, and it's got all this, information that's coming out. And so now that I've got that, you notice here there's like these colors, red on blue and then white on black, and it's got all these fancy colors that show up. So we've actually built a theme system into this, which is another layer on top of this. And so I'll go back here and Warden or workflow Warden disable, and I'll disable that. And now if I do this, it's not doing it anymore. Okay, so it just turned those control flags off. What I can do is there's another command here, list configuration themes. And we've got the themes are the default theme, which is what you saw. There's a matrix theme, there's a Skywalker theme, there's a Tron theme, and there's a Vader theme. And these were written by our intern, Vlad. He came in and helped me build out the theme system, and then I just sort of built the functionality and the commands that go around it. And then because of that, we built a demo to show off all of our themes and theme management. So I think it's a workflow though. So workflow ? And I'll see it here. I can scroll up through my workflows, and I've got a default theme demo, Skywalker theme demo, a Vader theme demo, a Matrix theme demo, Tron theme demo, and a demo all themes. So I'm going to run the demo all themes. It's going to take a little bit, and I should tell you that the previous demo that we just ran, which is all client and framework business rules, it's essentially going to do that, but it's going to enable a bunch of like debug logs for various functions and files as it's going through this. So you're going to see all the logs and you'll see all the stuff, and it's just going to scroll, and you'll see it change the theme as it's going. So I'm just describing that, and I'll just do workflow and paste that demo all themes, and you'll see it run. And this is with the default theme, so default color schema. It'll run that for a little bit, and then you'll see it switch to the Skywalker theme, and everything will be kind of colored blue like the Skywalker blue lightsaber. And it'll do the same thing. It'll continue on and probably go to Vader and be dark red or shades of red, and then it'll switch to Matrix and show different colors, Matrix colors. And then it'll switch to Tron and do the same workflow again with the Tron theme, different colors from the movie Tron. So you're going to see that. And I think while this is running, if we have any questions so far, if anybody wants to ask a question. There, we saw it go to the Skywalker theme, because this will take a few minutes to run through. So do we have any questions so far? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. No questions so far. Okay. Austin just joined. Welcome, Austin. We're just getting into this. Mateen, did you have a question? Okay. Go ahead and mute then. And oh, there. Now we see it just switched to the Vader theme, so we got everything running in shades of red now. Pretty cool. And it'll keep going. Okay, so yeah, we'll just keep going here. The next one, yeah, we'll do all themes demos. I'm going to start breaking into a little bit more. Yeah, now there, switch to the Matrix theme, so everything's kind of shaded green, and then we'll see the Tron theme last. So you can see it's quite powerful in the sense that we've got. Now we're still working a little bit on the themes. That's something we've got to align, because as we built a plugin system, new themes had to be deployed to each plugin, and that's still sort of in work, I think. It's mostly aligned. I think I did a lot of copy paste there, so it might all be the same, but we need to have some variation. Now there it switched to the Tron theme, and once that's done, that's a good sort of demo. Now you're not going to be able to see it quite at the frame rate that I'm seeing it. If it's running real time, it's pretty fast, but and actually you can, if you see behind me on the screens, that's actually what's sort of running on the background. Well, it's actually a variation of that. It's kind of an Easter egg that I built into this, and we'll close with that. That'll be the end of our demo when we finish. But we still have quite a bit more here to go, so let's keep going. I think it's almost done. Yep, there it's finishing up, and should be just about done now. Yep, it is. Okay, that's done. So I'm going to CLS for clear screen, and there we go. Now there's these other commands that are built into the system. There is a constants list generator. We built our code to not have hard-coded strings anywhere in our code, and we can have another webinar that sort of deep dives into as a developer. But there's developer tools, and that's what I was getting at here. We have a constants list generator that generates these lines of code, that constants. Because we used these, we rely so heavily on constants, I tried to think of ways that we could reduce our tech debt and reduce code entropy. And hard-coded strings in code was one thing that I could use to reduce code entropy. And so we decided to really push that and see how far we could push it. If we could push it like into maybe, I don't know, maybe is it possible to consider that there's such a thing as negative code entropy or negative tech debt? I don't know, but we tried. And we did some pretty interesting stuff. I mean, I was sort of thinking it's kind of like landing on the moon, right? You don't know you can do it until you do it, or that you want to do it because it's difficult, right? And so what we did was we took all of our string constants and moved them into constants files. But we went beyond that, and we said, okay, can we break down these hard-coded strings into other constants and then reuse those and inherit them from, and use one constants file to define the next constants file? And how far could we take that? Well, we took it pretty far. We took it all the way down to single characters. So now we have this like library of constants files that are enormous. And so we built these tools, developer tools and accelerator tools and validation tools, and we built a whole bunch of stuff around that and tools to help generate constants. And that's what this is. So we're able to use constants to generate new constants. So we have a command here that's constants generator list that allows me to define a list of strings that I want it to define constants around. So I'm passing some geometry here, some geometric shapes, hexagon, heptagon, nonagon, trapezoid. I'm passing those strings and I want it to define them as constants. So it's going to take each one of those now and run them through a child command, which is just the constants generator, right? And so there we go. Gen is generic. So generic is the generic constants library. C is the C prefix. Hex, so that constant already exists. Gen.chex plus BAS. BAS is basic. Basic.c AG, so it's just the characters AG plus BAS, basic constant dot C is the C prefix. ON is the string ON. So now I can copy paste these into my code or put them into a constants file, and I'll have the hexagon constant defined from other constants. And PHN is phonics, so that's a phonic, it's a 3-letter character, NON. So we've already defined these, and it's just basically doing a lookup and then redefining our new constants using constants that are already defined and verified. So that's kind of an interesting accelerator tool. It helps you. And we've got another one here that's a constants pattern recognizer. So it'll break these constants down and try to define or look for things that are already defined and compare them with strings that are not, right? So now I can sort of look and see if there's anything in here that's reusable, like the GON. Yep, AGO, that's a string that's not defined, right? So I can optimize this to determine if there are strings that are reusable across multiple lists of constants or strings that I want to define as constants, right? So now I know I've got a constant already TAG and I've got a constant already GON, but AGO is not. AGON is not, EPT, PTA, these are all constants that I could go define in my phonics maybe, or in one of the word constants if this makes sense to use it as a word. And then I would be able to optimize and rerun this and it should pick up the ones that are defined. So it allows me to optimize that. That was an interesting little tool. So we've got that one. And then there's a data system in here, a clear screen because it's going to be enormous. So all of this data structure that I mentioned, we have a huge data system on the back end. It's all JSON data objects and inside of a data structure. And I can print all of that data out. And the command is print data hive. And I can specify a specific data hive like configuration or one of our other data hives. It's thinking sort of like the Windows registry has a huge registry hive. So we're thinking of it like that. It's an enormous data structure. If I print that all out, it scrolls way past the cache. But I did do this last night and I logged it out to a log file and I captured that. So I'm going to copy paste this and I'll bring this over to a new file and I'm going to paste it right there. And from here I can do Control-Alt-M and auto format this. And now I can look at that JSON data structure. I can look at all of the configuration settings, the debug settings. So these are the actual debug system. You just notice that this is a hierarchical debug folders by framework, by application, by plugins. And inside the framework, inside the application, you can notice that it's broken down. There's broker files, which are the sort of go between middle management functions. There's a lot of brokers. It goes on for quite a while. But down here, there's the business rules and the commands and the low-level execution code. Yeah, see, there's the business rules, the commands blobs, so all the commands. These are all the settings for enabling or disabling those logs like we talked about earlier. So I can actually do data debugging using this. And it could be data debugging at the entire data structure level, or it could be data debugging JSON objects that are passed between function calls. So it's incredibly powerful. Being able to log to a log file and be able to analyze that is really cool. Okay, so we've gone to that. There's another system in here. We talked about commands and all of these commands. We talked about command aliases help the question mark like I just executed just now. But there's another system in here that's used to help you build command aliases. And it's called the Command Alias Generator. And if I can find it really quick, there it is right there, Command Alias Generator, right? And there's a command generator which actually generates sequences of commands. So you could just, in queue the same command, 50 or 100 times or whatever. That's for like performance analysis. But there's Command Alias Generator will generate these aliases and combinations of aliases. And this one is incredibly interesting and very powerful tool because it's actually solving a problem known as the lemur code. And the lemur code is a computational, it's a combinatorial problem. It's typically solved in solutions or problems that are looking at encryption, or another area that you would be solving this is sort of like for certain gaming or randomization problems and solutions, like in gambling. So you've got combinatorial problems there. In password generation, those kinds of issues, or sort of the kind of thing that you would look at for crypto or encryption. Yeah, I mean, you're going to see that. So it's a combinatorial problem, and we solved it using another algorithm called the recursive array expansion algorithm. And that was a very interesting problem to solve. But we use that to generate combinations of command aliases. So I can just execute it. It's more of an interactive command. So it'll ask me to provide some additional inputs. So command alias generator. And it's going to ask me for the term that I want, the command name that I want to use, because I could, like the command alias generator, it's command alias generator. It's 3 words, right? So we want to give it the term, and it's a camel case analysis system. So it'll break down the command based on your command, your camel case. So I have an example here. I'm just going to put Super Wonder Woman, right? And for super, now it's identified super is the first camel word in that block. And I'm just going to provide some aliases for the word super. So SUPR, SPR, and SR. And there it said wonder. So the same thing. So wonder, I'm going to provide some aliases for wonder. WONDR, WUNDR, WNDR, WND, and WN. Okay. And then woman, so WOMN, WMN, WM, and WN. Okay, and now I'm going to press enter, and it's going to solve the lemur code and take all of those permutations and put them into all the different possible combinations. And there we go. So now I've got, if I had a command that was Super Wonder Woman, I could copy paste this into my command alias file, and I would have a list of all the permutations. There might be some duplicates in here. I think there might have been a bug somewhere that it was still generating some duplicates, but they were pretty minimal. This was working pretty. And we have the validation command in here that will check for duplicates anyway. It is a pretty powerful tool, and it does work pretty good. So now that we've got that one, kind of an interesting tool. And now we're going to go into the plugin system. So we've built this plugin system, and it was probably last year, almost exactly last year, where I was really wrapping it up, building out the plugins, an advanced plugin feature set. So we've got, I can say, if I just type out question mark, you could see here, there's plugin 1 command 01, plugin 1 command 02, plugin 3, plugin 2. You can see all 3 plugins loaded with their commands. Okay. Now, if I do the command plugin 1 command 01, then it just echoes back this plugins.plugin1 commands blob.commands.plugin1 command.plugin1 command 01. Okay, so it just executed that string. It's just like a hello world kind of a plugin. But I demo that because now I can say list all loaded plugins, and you'll see there they are, plugin 1, plugin 3, and plugin 2. Okay, so those are the plugins that have been loaded. And now I can say unload plugin -1, and it did some stuff, and yep, it should have unloaded it. So let's try that again. List all loaded plugins, and yep, sure enough, plugin 3 and plugin 2 are there, but plugin 1 has been removed because we unloaded it, right? And that's expected. Okay, so if I try to run plugin 1 command 01 now, it gives a warning. It can't do it because it's been unloaded. It doesn't exist as a available command anymore. But if I try to say now load plugin, and I'm going to try to reload it, and I've got it, you have to specify the path, the exact path where you want it to load it from, and it'll reload it. It says warnings, plugins loaded already exist, but that's the stack. That's the stack where this stuff is stored in the data structure. Because of course, yes, we did have other plugins and they were loaded. So it's just a warning there. But it loaded plugin 1. And now if I do this again, list all loaded plugins, there it is, plugin 1. It's been reloaded. And sure enough, if I do the question mark, I get the list and plugin 1 is back. There it is. And if I try to execute it now, plugin 1 command 01. Oops, I probably mistyped it. Let's just try copy paste. Oops. Let's try that. There it is. So yeah, it's running it again. We've reloaded it and it's successfully loaded, and there it is. Now I can also do this with all plugins. So I can say unload all plugins, and it should have unloaded all of them. So list all loaded plugins. There's none of them loaded. It unloaded all of them. Question mark. There's no plugin commands down here at the bottom. Yep. So now I can reload them all, of course. Load plugins from registry. And it will load the plugin registry and pull the paths and then figure out what the paths are for each plugin and reload them. Now I think I probably just maybe... Oh, okay. Yeah, it's working. Yep, so it should have now reloaded all the plugins. And if I type question mark, there we go. I got my plugin commands back. So we can load and unload. And if you notice here, there's actually a lot of plugin commands. Sync plugin registry with path, unregister plugins, unregister plugin, register plugin, count plugins and registry, list plugins and registry path. So it's looking at the individual path, the actual path, sync plugins, registry path, unregister all plugins. You know, there's a lot of plugin commands here. It's really powerful. And so moving on, we talked a lot about the constants, but let me show you there's some validation commands in here. If I run the all constants validation, it'll run quite a bit. It'll run for a while. But we've also talked about the command aliases, the workflows. So these validation systems in here, I'm trying to figure out where they went. Yeah, here they are. validateConstants it runs a multi-tiered constants validation on our constants files. So it actually has a static code analysis system built into it. It will load the constants definition files, the actual code files, and it will make sure that they are all defined with the right code format. So export const and then the constant name with a C prefix, and then the definition, the actual definition of the constant with a semicolon at the end and a comment that describes how that constant should evaluate. So it will validate that all the code files are structured the way they're supposed to be. Every single line in there is the way it's supposed to be. And then it checks to make sure that for every single constant we have in every single one of our constants files, that there is a corresponding entry in our constants validation system. So that way we know that for every constant we have a validation entry. And then it goes and checks the constants validation entry to make sure that constant evaluates to what it's supposed to evaluate to. Now, it does this brute force, so it takes a while, right, to run through all of our constants because they're enormous. Fortunately, I've got a demo here that runs quite a bit faster that just runs the application constants validation. But there's also validateCommandAliases. So it's checking all of those command aliases to make sure that there's no duplicates. It validates the workflows to make sure that there's no duplicate workflows, the workflow definitions across the application, the framework, the plugins, whatever's loaded, it'll check it. Right, and then we've got another command here, runAllValidations, which we basically use as part of our CI/CD DevOps deployment system. So this is the test harness application. We built another application that also leverages the same framework called build release. And so we're using the system to build itself, deploy itself, release itself, all of that stuff. And so we've got these DevOps sort of commands that static code check itself, run these integration commands to make sure that have high quality and no duplicates before we actually go and issue a release. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of interesting. But let me go show you. We actually got the validateApplicationConstants, and you're going to see it run the two-phase constants validation system. So you'll see it run phase 1 and phase 2. It's actually loading the constants files and running phase 1 there and scanning the individual files. It takes a few seconds to sort of get warmed up. I ran this last night to make sure that it wouldn't take forever, because when we're running brute force and it's doing n-by-n comparisons, it can be. I think in the future, we do hope to build a red-black binary tree, so this thing will scale with n log n, big O of n log n, instead of big O of n to the n. It just takes forever. This should go a little bit faster. I hope so. But anyways, we are getting close to the end here. There's only a few more commands I was going to demo. I think basic is a little bit bigger and takes a little bit long. Oh, you know what? Shoot, that is running all validations. That's not what I wanted. Let me run it, log into this thing again, and it should have been running this one, that's disappointing. I had to quit. I'm sorry about that. The other piece that I was going to show was sort of dependent upon that. But there we go. Run application constants validation. Here it goes. Now it's running quite a bit faster. You can see it running and loading the individual files, even for the plugins. And then it ran phase 2, and then it gives a report and shows you what's working and what's not. So that actually was pretty cool. Now, the next thing that I was going to show, we're actually getting close to the end here, is there is, and maybe I'll go back and run one of the other ones really quick, just because I need to generate some data really quick. Workflow, ? And I'm going to just rerun all client framework business rules, because I need to generate some data on the command stack real quick. Workflow. So we'll see that again. It's just going to run through all these, gathered to telemetry from each one, like we were talking about before. It'll run the performance and benchmark analysis on each one of these calls. And like we mentioned, doing this performance analysis metrics. Okay, there we go. We got that benchmark analysis metrics, the command metrics, business rules metrics, and now we've got some generated data. Now there's another command here. The reason why I want to do that is because there's another command here which print user command logs. So print user command logs is a command that prints out my command history. So all the commands that I've entered in this session will get printed. And we haven't done very much because I haven't entered very much. I was going to show a bigger stack because, of course, we've been doing this for a little while. But, of course, I had to quit. So that was a little disappointing, but you can kind of see it there. But there's another one here that shows all the command logs. Now, the all command logs, the difference between these is the all command logs is anytime we enter a command, like a workflow command, like the one I just entered, it actually decomposed into a whole lot of other commands, right? And so this is tracking all of the commands that were decomposed from other workflow commands and nested workflows inside of workflows, and maybe not commands that I entered, like typed into the keyboard and pressed enter, but all the commands that were executed as a decompositional process. So if I do that, you can see, yep, it's a lot of them, right? Because it decomposed all of those into a lot. Now this is kind of cool because I've got another command here that will allow you to clear the user command logs. And these are controlled by configuration flags that you can turn on or off and allow control or allow these settings to be manipulated and, provide admin control over them. So I can clear that user command log. And now if I go back and type print user commands log, it's empty. The only one there is the one I just entered. But the all command logs is still there, right? It's still going to display, I could go run it again, print all commands logs. If I run that again, it's still all there, right? It just cleared out my cache as to what commands I've typed in and pressed enter on. So that's kind of interesting. It shows you sort of a way of analyzing all of this. And finally, we're going to close now. And the last command it's an Easter egg. And that's the one that's running behind me on the screens. So this let me give you a little bit of history on the Easter egg. It goes back to my dad bought our first computer back in 1983. It was the Amiga computer. It had 256 kilobytes of RAM. And we had these little floppy disks that you would do. I know kids look at them now and go like, oh, a 3D printed save icon or whatever. But back in the day, this was the thing, right? We used these. And it had a video game on there that if your boss was walking up behind you, you'd press the tilde key and it would replace the game with like a table of numbers. So you could sit there and kind of look at it and go, oh, yeah, okay. And then your boss walks away and you release the tilde key and you're back to playing your game. It was called the boss panic command. And loved that. It was really fun, kind of interesting, kind of a cute little thing. And I figured I'd create something like that. So I created a boss panic command. So if I do workflow, if I actually do question mark, you'll see it here. There's the boss panic command. It's actually an application defined command, so it exists in the application. But if I do workflow, it has a bunch of parameters that allow me to control how it's going to behave. But if I do workflow question mark, then we actually scroll up here and we see boss panic command workflow 1. So I'm going to run this, and it's an infinite command. It puts the application into an infinite loop, and you have to control C to get out of it. But if I do workflow, and that's why I'm ending with it, workflow space and then paste, and then it just sits here and does this thing, right? Kind of like what's running on the screen behind me. Now the benefit of this is it could be whatever you want it to be, right? Your boss comes in and sees this stuff running and, what are you doing? Oh, I'm compiling, right? Or I'm hacking traffic cameras or crypto mining or something. we try to have fun at Haystacks Tech. We try to enjoy, it's not all business. We try to have a little bit of fun. And it kind of comes back to what they do in the movies, right? You have I don't know if you've ever seen the Fast and Furious movies. The actors are just sort of standing around and doing their acting. And behind them, they got little globes spinning and some stuff running on the screen. And it is what it is, right? It is whatever they tell it to be. I'm tracking some traffic cameras and we're tracking some GPS coordinates or something, and the actors don't know what's going on the screen. They have tech guys that are building the stuff to run on the screen, and the actors are there and that stuff on the screen is just there to help them make them look smarter. So yeah, that sort of wraps that up, and I don't know, we can close on that. If anybody has any sort of questions, happy to speak up now. There's the README that's included on the repository, and that sort of walks through a very basic rudimentary version of what I just did. This video, when we publish it, that'll help, I think, a little bit. I think there's more documents that are going to be written. And I should also add that we've built an application. We built several applications on top of this system already. One of them is the Haystacks Typing Tutor app, which helps kids and other people learn how to become better typists. And that's an open source. It's a command line interface, just like this, but it's an open source tool that allows, it works on Mac, Windows, Linux, runs on all the platforms. And I should also add that we've built this system because it runs cross-platform. You should be able to adopt this and get it to work in Docker or Kubernetes to do enterprise automation or part of a CI/CD DevOps platform or whatever else you want to use it to build applications for whatever your purpose is. So I think, with the demo applications that we've already built, the Haystacks Typing Tutor, and now we're in the process of building and just about ready to release our commercial application that we built on top of this that's geared for testing automation and enterprise solutions. Yeah, there is some documentation. Noel is working on editing for our white papers that are really going to talk about our strategy around that commercial enterprise product release. There is more documentation that's coming, especially integration documents, but we're still sort of early stage. Any additional questions? Okay. And another final sort of note is to sort of wrap this up is if you would like to schedule a discovery call with myself or any of our team, we'd be happy to have that scheduled, show you a live demo of our commercial product and how you can use that to build and automate your quality assurance and CI/CD to DevOps or enterprise automation. So we can certainly help solve that. And we've got some really revolutionary technologies that are well above and built on everything that I've just showed you today. So we're sort of really actually taking that to the next level. Excited to bring that to market. Schedule your discovery call today. We're ready to be here to help you. All right. If there's no final questions, I think we'll go ahead and sign off and close it up for today. And again, thank you to Mobile First Applications for helping us build the system and for being here today and supporting us. All right. And final note, see links in the description, and we'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Haystacks.